People often assume that power structures exist because they are strong, but strength alone rarely explains why systems last. History shows that even the most powerful governments can collapse almost overnight. Empires that ruled continents eventually disappeared. Kingdoms that once seemed permanent faded into history. So the real question is not simply how power is created. The deeper question is what keeps it in place. Is it force? Is it law? Is it fear? Or is it something more subtle? Most power structures rely on something that cannot be seen. Agreement. Millions of people waking up every morning and continuing to follow the same set of rules. Driving on the same roads. Working inside the same institutions. Participating in the same systems. Power often continues not because it is constantly enforced, but because it is constantly accepted. Because people believe the structure is legitimate. Because they assume it must exist. Because they rarely stop to question it. But when people think about power, they usually imagine something visible. Armies, police, courts, those things appear to hold authority, but they are only the outer layer. Beneath every structure is something far less visible: expectation. People expect the system to exist tomorrow the same way it exists today. They expect the rules to remain the same. They expect the institutions to continue functioning. And when millions of people hold the same expectations at the same time, a structure becomes stable. Not because it cannot change, but because few people imagine that it will. But history shows us something interesting. Every system that has ever existed eventually changed. Sometimes slowly through reform, sometimes suddenly through collapse. Not because the structure was invincible, but because belief shifted. And when enough people begin seeing a system differently, the system itself begins to change. Because once people begin asking deeper questions, they begin to see the invisible agreements that hold systems together. And perhaps that is why power structures rarely appear fragile while they are functioning, because the system feels permanent to those living inside it. People grow up within the structure. They learn its rules. They build their lives around its expectations. To them, it feels natural. But history reminds us that every generation has lived inside systems they believed would last forever. Empires, kingdoms, governments, institutions. Yet over time, those structures changed, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. Not because the world ended, but because people eventually saw the structure differently. Because awareness spreads, because questions begin circulating. And once enough people begin asking those questions, the nature of power begins to shift. Which raises another question. If systems rely on collective agreement to function, what happens when that agreement begins to change?